Daniel forced himself to focus on the road. The GPS showed a town called Pine Ridge 15 miles ahead. 15 miles that felt like 1,500 in these conditions. He could barely see past the hood of his SUV. Is he breathing? Daniel called back to the children. The oldest girl had her hand on the little boy's chest. Barely. What's your name? Daniel asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Silence. I'm Daniel. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise I'm taking you somewhere safe and warm. More silence. These kids had learned not to trust adults. Daniel's jaw clenched. What had they been through? The heater was finally warming the vehicle. Daniel could hear the children's teeth chattering less violently. The girl was rubbing the little boy's hands, trying to get circulation back. Thank you for stopping, she finally whispered. Nobody else did. Daniel's heart broke. How many cars passed you? 7. 7 people had seen 4 children dying in a blizzard and kept driving. Daniel wanted to curse, but he swallowed it down. Well, I stopped. And I'm going to make sure you're all okay. The town appeared like a mirage through the snow. Pine Ridge. Population 3,200 according to the sign. Daniel had never heard of it, but right now it looked like heaven. He spotted a lit-up diner and pulled into the parking lot. Can you walk? He asked the children. The oldest girl nodded. She was trying to lift the little boy, but she was too weak. Daniel came around and carefully picked up the child. He weighed almost nothing. The other 2 children, a boy and a girl, held onto Daniel's coat as they stumbled toward the diner entrance. A bell chimed as they entered. The warmth hit Daniel like a wall. Several people looked up from their coffee and pie. A woman behind the counter, maybe 50 years old with graying blonde hair, took one look at the children and rushed over. Oh my Lord, what happened? She was already grabbing blankets from a storage closet. Found them on Highway 10, Daniel said. They need help. The little one especially. The woman, whose name tag read Beth, led them to a large booth in the back. She was already calling someone on her cell phone. Doc Patterson, get to the diner right now. I have 4 children suffering from exposure. Within minutes, an elderly man with a medical bag arrived. He examined each child carefully while Beth brought hot chocolate and soup. The children didn't ask for permission. They grabbed the food and ate like they hadn't seen a meal in days. Daniel watched them, his mind racing. That necklace around the oldest girl's neck. He could see it clearly now. A silver heart with a tiny diamond chip in the center. He'd bought it at a mall kiosk when he was 16, spending his entire summer job paycheck on it. He'd given it to his little sister Amy for her 13th birthday. Amy had been dead for 15 years. So how was this child wearing her necklace? Dr. Patterson looked up at Daniel. They'll be okay. Got to them just in time. Another hour, and we'd be having a different conversation. Beth was already bringing more food. You kids just eat up. Don't worry about anything. Daniel sat across from them, trying to make sense of the impossible. The oldest girl caught him staring at her necklace. Her hand moved protectively over it. Where did you get that necklace? Daniel asked gently. The girl's eyes went wide. Fear flashed across her face. It's okay, Daniel said quickly. I'm not trying to take it. I recognize it. My mama gave it to me, the girl whispered. Before she died. It's all I have left of her. Daniel's world tilted. What was your mama's name? The girl's chin lifted. Amy Cooper. The diner sounds faded to nothing. Beth was saying something, but Daniel couldn't hear her. Amy Cooper. His sister. His baby sister who'd run away at 18 and who he'd spent years trying to find. Who'd died of an overdose in a Portland homeless shelter 5 years ago according to the report the private investigator had finally sent him. These weren't just 4 lost children. They were his family. Daniel couldn't speak. He stared at the girl, seeing his sister's eyes looking back at him. How had he not seen it immediately? The same stubborn chin. The same way she tilted her head when she was scared but trying to be brave. How old are you? He finally managed. 12. I'm Sophie. She pointed to the others. That's Tommy, he's 10. Grace is 8. And Ethan is 6. 4 children. Amy had 4 children. And he'd known nothing about any of them. Beth was watching Daniel's face carefully. You know these kids? Their mother was my sister. Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't know she had children. I didn't know anything. She disappeared when she was 18 and I spent years trying to find her. By the time I did, she was already gone. Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Your Uncle Daniel? Mama talked about you sometimes. She said you were the only one who was ever nice to her. Daniel had to look away. When Amy had run away, he'd been 21, struggling to build his first startup. He tried to find her, but she'd disappeared completely. Their parents had refused to look, said she'd made her choice. By the time Daniel had money and resources to hire investigators, Amy's trail was years cold. Where have you been living? Daniel asked. Foster homes, Sophie said quietly. After Mama died, they split us up at first. But then they put us all with the Richardsons 6 months ago. So why were you on that highway? Orchestrated narrative progression with community involvement and character development. I need to continue the story. Sophie needs to explain why they ran away, and Daniel needs to start understanding the situation. This chapter should show the community starting to help, and Daniel beginning to process what he's learned. I need to keep it at around 500 words per chapter. Sophie looked at her siblings. Tommy was still shivering despite the blankets. Grace had fallen asleep against him. Little Ethan was clutching a stuffed bear that Beth had found somewhere. They were going to separate us again, Sophie said. Mrs. Richardson said they found different homes for each of us. Better homes, she said. But we'd be in different cities. Tommy would go to Duluth, Grace to Rochester, me and Ethan to different places in Minneapolis. They said it would be easier for everyone. Easier, Daniel repeated, anger rising in his chest. We ran, Sophie continued. 3 days ago. We took the bus as far as our money would go, then we started walking. We were trying to get to the Canadian border. Mama always said Canada was beautiful. She said maybe someday we'd all go there and start over. Beth sat down at the booth, her eyes glistening. You poor babies. I'm calling Sheriff Morrison, Doc Patterson said. They need to know these children are safe. Daniel's mind was racing. I want custody. They are my nieces and nephew. They are family. Beth smiled. That's good to hear. But it'll take time. The system doesn't move fast. I'll make it move fast, Daniel said. I have lawyers. I have resources. These kids aren't going back to any system that wanted to split them up. Sophie was staring at Daniel like he might disappear. You really want us? Want you? Daniel moved to sit next to her. Sophie, I spent 5 years looking for your mother. I never stopped hoping I'd find her, that I could help her. I can't bring her back, but I can take care of her children. You're not going to be separated. I promise you that. The girl finally let the tears fall. Tommy reached for Daniel's hand. Even Grace stirred in her sleep, as if she could sense the shift in the air. Sheriff Morrison arrived 20 minutes later, a tall man in his 50s with a kind face. He listened to the whole story, made some calls, and finally nodded. Social services will be here in the morning, he said. For tonight, Beth, can you put them up? Already planned on it, Beth said. I've got rooms upstairs. They are small, but they are warm and safe. Daniel stood. I'll pay for everything. Whatever they need. Beth waved him off. This is Pine Ridge. We take care of our own. But I'll take you up on staying yourself. You're not driving anywhere tonight in this storm. As Beth led the children upstairs, Sophie turned back to Daniel. You're not going to leave, are you? I'm not going anywhere, Daniel promised. Not until you're all safe. Not until you're all home. He watched them disappear up the stairs, then sank into the booth. His sister had 4 children. His sister had died alone and scared, and her children had been suffering ever since. But that ended now. Whatever it took, he'd make this right. Morning brought clear skies and 3 feet of fresh snow. Daniel woke in the small room Beth had provided, his body aching from the uncomfortable mattress. But he'd slept better than he had in months. The children were safe. That was all that mattered. He found them in the diner's kitchen, helping Beth make pancakes. Ethan was standing on a stool, carefully pouring batter onto the griddle. Sophie was cutting strawberries. Tommy and Grace were setting tables in the main dining area. You put them to work? Daniel asked Beth. She smiled. They asked. Said they wanted to earn their keep. I told them they don't have to earn anything, but they insisted. Sophie looked up. We always helped at the Richardsons. Mrs. Richardson said if we wanted to eat, we had to work. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He took a slow breath. Well, here you don't have to work for food. But if you want to help because you enjoy it, that's different. We like helping, Grace said shyly. It was the first time Daniel had heard her speak. A woman entered the diner, bundled in a bright blue winter coat. She had warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Beth waved her over. Rachel, thanks for coming. Daniel, this is Rachel Moore. She teaches at Pine Ridge Elementary. Rachel, this is Daniel Cooper and his nieces and nephew. Rachel's eyes widened as she looked at the children. Oh my goodness. You're the Kensington children. You've been missing for 3 days. Half the state has been looking for you. Sophie stepped protectively in front of her siblings. We're not going back. Hey, it's okay, Rachel said gently, kneeling to Sophie's level. I'm not here to take you anywhere. I just want to make sure you're all right. I've been so worried about you. You know them? Daniel asked. I taught Sophie and Tommy last year when they were briefly placed with a family here in Pine Ridge, Rachel explained. Best students I ever had. When they got moved to the Richardson home in Duluth, I tried to keep in touch, but the system doesn't always make that easy. Sophie's defensive posture softened. Miss Moore, I remember you. You gave me books. I did, Rachel smiled. And I meant what I said in my note. You can always be anything you want to be. You're smart and brave and capable of amazing things. A car pulled up outside. A woman in a dark gray suit climbed out, carrying a briefcase. Daniel's stomach tightened. Social services. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Patricia Winters. She had forms and questions and a laptop full of official documents. She listened to Sophie's story, took notes, and examined the children's physical condition with Dr. Patterson's help. Mr. Cooper, you claim to be their uncle. Mrs. Winters asked. I am their uncle. Amy Cooper was my sister. Can you prove that? Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her photos. Him and Amy as children. Amy's birth certificate that he'd kept all these years. His own identification. Mrs. Winters took photos of everything with her phone. The children will need to be placed in temporary care while we verify your relationship and process your custody request, Mrs. Winters said. No, Sophie said firmly. We're not going to another foster home. Sophie, I understand this is hard, but there are procedures that must be followed. They can stay with me, Beth interjected. I'm a licensed foster provider. Have been for 20 years. I can take temporary custody right here in Pine Ridge while everything gets sorted. Mrs. Winters considered this. That would be acceptable. But Mr. Cooper, you'll need to undergo background checks, home studies, and psychological evaluations. The process could take months. Then we start immediately, Daniel said. Whatever you need, I'll provide. But these children are not going to be separated. That's non-negotiable. Mrs. Winters packed up her things. I'll begin the paperwork. In the meantime, they can stay with Mrs. Henderson. Mr. Cooper, you're welcome to visit, but you cannot take them anywhere without supervision. After she left, Sophie approached Daniel. What if she doesn't believe you? What if they take us away? Daniel knelt to her level, the same way Rachel had. I'm not going to let that happen. I have lawyers, investigators, and resources. More importantly, I have something they don't. What's that? Tommy asked. I have the truth. You're my family, and families stay together. Rachel touched his arm. I can help. I know the local system, and I can vouch for these kids. They are special. Daniel met her eyes and saw genuine care there. Thank you. I'll need all the help I can get. Beth started serving pancakes. The children ate quietly, but there was less fear in their eyes now. Outside, the town of Pine Ridge was waking up. People walked past the diner, waving at Beth through the windows. Daniel had come here by accident, following 4 lost children through a blizzard. Now he realized maybe it wasn't an accident at all. Daniel spent the morning making phone calls. His lawyers in Seattle were already pulling records, birth certificates, and documentation. His assistant was clearing his schedule for the next 2 weeks. The board meeting he'd been rushing to attend suddenly seemed meaningless compared to 4 children who needed him. Around noon, Rachel offered to take the kids to the community center for showers and fresh clothes. The local church had already donated bags full of winter gear, all in bright colors. Sophie picked a red coat. Tommy chose green. Grace couldn't decide between blue and purple, so Rachel said she could have both. Ethan got a yellow snowsuit that made him look like a small, happy son. While they were gone, Daniel sat in the diner booth, holding the necklace Sophie had agreed to let him examine. His hands trembled as he turned it over. There, on the back of the heart, were the initials he'd had engraved. AC plus DC Amy Cooper and Daniel Cooper. She kept it all those years, he whispered. Beth refilled his coffee. Your sister must have loved you very much. I should have tried harder to find her. I should have done more. You were barely an adult yourself when she left, Beth said gently. Sometimes people have to walk their own path, even when it breaks the hearts of the people who love them. She had 4 children. 4. And she was alone. Beth sat across from him. From what Sophie's told me this morning, Amy fought hard to keep those kids together. Even when she was struggling with addiction, she made sure they were fed. When she couldn't take care of them anymore, she made sure they entered the system as a group. She loved them fiercely. Then she died alone in a shelter. Maybe. Or maybe she died knowing her children had a chance at something better. And look what's happening now. You found them. Against all odds, in a blizzard that could have killed them, you found them. Daniel looked up. You think that's more than coincidence? Beth smiled. I think there are moments in life when we're exactly where we're supposed to be. You were on that highway at that exact moment because those children needed you. Amy sent them to you. Amy's dead. Bodies die. Love doesn't. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't a religious man. He'd built his fortune on logic and code and market analysis. But sitting in this small-town diner, holding his dead sister's necklace while snow fell outside, he couldn't deny that something bigger than chance had brought him here. The door opened and the children rushed in, transformed. Clean, warm, wearing bright new clothes. Sophie's hair had been brushed and braided. Someone had given Grace a stuffed rabbit that she clutched tightly. Tommy and Ethan were laughing about something, actually laughing. Uncle Daniel, look at my coat, Grace said, spinning to show off the bright blue parka. And Miss Moore says I can keep the rabbit. It's beautiful, Daniel said, his throat tight. You all look wonderful. Rachel caught his eye and mouthed thank you. He nodded back. Sophie approached him slowly. Can I have my necklace back? Of course. Daniel fastened it around her neck. Your mom gave this to me first, you know. I gave it to her for her 13th birthday. She told me she'd keep it forever. She did keep it forever, Sophie said. Even when we had no food, even when we had to leave everything behind, she kept this necklace. She said it reminded her that someone once loved her. Daniel pulled Sophie into a hug. She stiffened at first, then slowly relaxed. Her small arms wrapped around him. Someone still loves you, Daniel said. All of you. And I'm not going anywhere. Tommy joined the hug, then Grace, even little Ethan. They stood there in the diner, this newly discovered family, holding on to each other while Beth wiped tears from her eyes and Rachel smiled. Outside, the town of Pine Ridge watched through the windows. And one by one, they started to understand. These weren't just 4 lost children. They were 4 miracles who'd survived long enough to find their way home. The next few days blurred together. Mrs. Winters returned with verification. DNA tests were ordered. Daniel submitted to every background check, every interview, every invasive question. His lawyers worked overtime, but the process moved at a crawl. Rachel became a constant presence, bringing schoolwork for the children and spending hours helping them catch up. Sophie was reading at a high school level. Tommy had a gift for mathematics. Grace loved art. Ethan, despite being only 6, could already read simple chapter books. They are brilliant, Rachel told Daniel. And they've been neglected academically for so long. Sophie should be in accelerated classes. Tommy needs advanced math. They've all been held back because the system doesn't have time for individual attention. Daniel took notes. What do they need? Time. Stability. Someone who believes in them. They have that now. On the fourth day, Mrs. Winters called Daniel to a meeting at the county office. He drove through the snowy countryside, his stomach in knots. Rachel had offered to watch the children while he was gone. Mrs. Winters's office was small and cluttered with files. She gestured for Daniel to sit. The DNA tests confirm your relationship, she said. You are their biological uncle. Your background check is clean. You have substantial financial resources and a stable home. Daniel waited. There was a but coming. However, the children have been in the system for over a year. They've been through trauma. Sophie shows signs of anxiety. Tommy has nightmares. Grace barely speaks outside of safe environments. Ethan is delayed in several developmental areas. They need therapy, Daniel said. I'll provide it. Whatever they need. It's more than that, Mr. Cooper. These children need consistency. They need routine. They need someone who will be present, not someone who runs a billion-dollar company from another state. Then I'll move. Mrs. Winters blinked. Excuse me. I'll move. My company is headquartered in Seattle, but most of my work is remote anyway. I can relocate to Minnesota. I can buy a house here in Pine Ridge if that's what's best for the children. You'd uproot your entire life. My life was already uprooted the moment I found those kids in the snowstorm, Daniel said. Everything I've built, everything I've owned, none of it matters if I can't take care of my sister's children. Family comes first. Always. Mrs. Winters studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. Mr. Cooper, I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of relatives claim they want custody, then disappear when they realize how hard it is. But I believe you. I believe you'll do whatever it takes. So they can stay with me. There's still a process. Court hearings. More evaluations. But I'm going to recommend immediate placement in your custody, with Beth Henderson as a backup guardian during the transition. You'll have supervised visits for the first month, then we'll reassess. Daniel's hands were shaking. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Being a parent, especially to traumatized children, is the hardest thing you'll ever do. But I think you're up for it. Daniel drove back to Pine Ridge with a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. He found the children at Rachel's small house on Maple Street, working on a science project about snowflakes. Hey kids, can we talk? Daniel asked. They gathered around him, eyes wide and worried. They'd learned that talks usually meant bad news. I just met with Mrs. Winters, Daniel began. Sophie's face fell. Are they taking us? No. They are letting you come with me. We still have some hoops to jump through, but the judge is going to grant me custody. The children stared at him in silence. Then Sophie burst into tears. Tommy grabbed Daniel's arm. Grace whispered really, over and over. Ethan just smiled, like he'd known all along. Really, Daniel confirmed. And I decided something else. We're going to live here, in Pine Ridge. This town saved your lives. These people opened their homes and hearts to you. I want to be part of that. You're going to stay? Sophie asked through her tears. I'm going to stay. We're going to find a house, and you're going to go to school with Miss Moore, and we're going to be a family. A real family. Rachel was wiping her own eyes. That's wonderful, Daniel. What would you do if you found out you had family you never knew existed? Would you change your entire life for them? Hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me about the family members who changed your life. These kids needed someone to believe in them, just like all of us need someone in our corner. Beth arrived an hour later with dinner from the diner. Word had spread fast through Pine Ridge. Several other families stopped by, bringing clothes, toys, books. The pastor from the local church offered to help Daniel find a house. A lawyer in town volunteered to help with the legal paperwork for free. That night, as the children slept in Beth's upstairs rooms, Daniel stood outside in the snow. The stars were brilliant, undimmed by city lights. He thought about Amy, about all the years she'd struggled alone, about how she'd loved these children enough to make sure they survived even after she was gone. I've got them, Amy, he whispered to the night sky. I promise I'll take care of them. I promise they'll never feel lost again." The wind picked up, gentle and soft, almost like a whisper of approval. And for the first time since his sister had run away 15 years ago, Daniel felt at peace. The news that Daniel Cooper was moving to Pine Ridge spread through town faster than the snowstorm had. By morning, half the town seemed to know, and by afternoon, they were responding in ways Daniel hadn't expected. Beth Steiner became an unofficial headquarters. Mayor Patricia Sullivan arrived first, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mr. Cooper, I hear you're looking for a house," she said, spreading a map of Pine Ridge across a table. "The old Hendricks place just went on the market. 4 bedrooms, big yard, walking distance to the school. The owner's my cousin. I can have you in there by next week." Daniel blinked. "That fast?" "We take care of our own in Pine Ridge," Mayor Sullivan said. "Those kids are ours now. And so are you." Next came Jim Morrison, who owned the hardware store. "You'll need furniture. I've got contacts with suppliers in Minneapolis. We can get everything delivered and set up within a week. No markup, just cost." "I can pay full price," Daniel said. Jim shook his head. "Didn't ask if you could pay. Said I'd get it at cost. That's how we do things here." The offers kept coming. The principal at Pine Ridge Elementary, Margaret Chen, stopped by to discuss enrolling the children. She brought the school counselor, a kind man named Robert Wilson, who specialized in trauma-informed education. "We'll make sure they have everything they need," Principal Chen said. "Small class sizes, individual attention, and Rachel Moore is our best teacher. They'll thrive here." Dr. Patterson arrived with a plan for ongoing medical care. "Those kids need regular checkups. Ethan especially. He's underweight and showing signs of neglect. Nothing permanent, but he needs monitoring." "Whatever they need," Daniel said. "Course you'll say that," Doc Patterson chuckled. "But I'm not sending you bills. Consider it my contribution to bringing new life to this town." Daniel was overwhelmed. "I appreciate all of this, but I'm a billionaire. I can afford to pay for things." Beth poured him more coffee. "This isn't about money, Daniel. It's about community. These folks aren't helping because they want your money. They are helping because that's what neighbors do." Sophie, Tommy, Grace, and Ethan watched all of this with wide eyes. They'd never experienced anything like it. In the foster system, everything had been transactional. Help always came with strings attached. Rachel pulled Sophie aside. "What do you think about all this?" "I don't understand," Sophie admitted. "Why are all these people being so nice? They don't even know us." "That's what makes it kindness," Rachel explained. "Real kindness doesn't wait for someone to earn it. It just gives because giving is the right thing to do. These people see 4 children who need help, and they are helping. That's it. Nobody's ever done that before. Then you've been around the wrong people. But you're in the right place now." That evening, the church organized a welcome dinner. The entire congregation showed up, bringing casseroles, pies, and enough food to feed 50 people. They filled the church basement, and Daniel and the children were treated like honored guests. Pastor David Williams blessed the meal, then looked directly at the children. "We're so glad you're here. This community has been waiting for you, even though we didn't know it. You've brought joy back to our town." Tommy leaned over to Daniel. "Why does he say we brought joy? We didn't do anything." "Sometimes just existing is enough," Daniel whispered back. "Sometimes just being alive and letting people love you is the greatest gift you can give." After dinner, several families approached with specific offers. The Johnsons wanted to teach Sophie piano. They had a daughter her age and thought they'd get along. The Martinez family offered to tutor Tommy in advanced mathematics. Mrs. Anderson, who ran the library, told Grace she could come by anytime to read, and that she'd save the best new books for her. Ethan found himself surrounded by younger children who wanted to play. For the first time since Daniel had found them, he heard Ethan laugh. Really laugh. The sound brought tears to Daniel's eyes. Rachel noticed. "You're doing something incredible, you know." "I'm just trying to keep a promise to my sister." "It's more than that. You're showing these kids what family should be. What love should look like. That's not small. I couldn't do it without all this help." That's the beauty of it. You don't have to. That's what community means. We all carry each other. Before they left, Mayor Sullivan handed Daniel keys. Hendrick's place is yours if you want it. Owner dropped the price by 40% when she heard the story. Said she'd rather have a family in there who needs it than wait for someone willing to pay more. Daniel held the keys, his throat tight. I'll buy it tomorrow. Good. Now, about your company. You said it's in Seattle. Yes. But I can work remotely. Or, Mayor Sullivan smiled, you could bring some jobs, eh? We've got good internet. Smart people. Low cost of living. Pine Ridge could use some tech industry presence. Daniel looked around the church basement at all these kind faces, these generous hearts, these people who'd welcomed four lost children and a stranger without hesitation. Let me make some calls, he said. Maybe I can move more than just myself. Sophie tugged on his sleeve. Are we really staying here? Forever. Forever, Daniel promised. This is home now. She hugged him tight. And in that moment, surrounded by a community that had chosen to care, Daniel understood what he'd been missing his whole life. It wasn't success. It wasn't money. It wasn't even finding his sister. It was belonging. Moving day arrived with sunshine and a small army of volunteers. The Hendricks house, a charming two-story home with white siding and blue shutters, was transformed in a matter of hours. Furniture appeared. Dishes were unpacked. Beds were made. The volunteers worked with military precision, directed by Beth, who seemed to know exactly where everything should go. Sophie, Tommy, Grace, and Ethan walked through their new home in stunned silence. Each child had their own bedroom for the first time in over a year. Sophie's room had been painted a soft lavender. Tommy's had built-in bookshelves. Grace's room had a corner set up for art supplies. Ethan's room had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Is this real? Grace whispered, touching the stuffed animals arranged on her new bed. It's real, Daniel assured her. This is your home. Your room. Nobody's going to take it away. Rachel had organized the children's belongings, what little they had. She'd also added new clothes, books, and toys donated by the community. But she'd made sure each child's few personal items were displayed prominently. Sophie's necklace had a special holder on her dresser. Tommy's collection of rocks from various foster homes lined his windowsill. Grace's drawings covered one wall. Ethan's worn teddy bear sat in the place of honor on his pillow. You remembered, Sophie said, her eyes glistening. Of course I remembered, Rachel said. These things are important. They're your history. Just because you're getting new things doesn't mean you forget where you came from. That first night, Daniel made dinner. It was clumsy and burned in places, but the children ate everything. Afterward, they sat in the living room, trying to figure out how to be a family. So, what do you guys normally do in the evening? Daniel asked. Silence. At the Richardsons, we had to stay in our rooms, Sophie finally said. Unless we were cleaning. Daniel's jaw clenched. He took a breath. Well, that's not how we're doing things, eh? You can watch TV if you want. Or read. Or play games. Or just sit and do nothing. This is your home. You're allowed to exist here, without earning it. What if we make a mess? Tommy asked. Then we clean it up. Together. What if we break something? Then we fix it or replace it. Accidents happen. I'm not going to yell at you for being human. The children exchanged glances. They'd clearly learned to expect punishment for any mistake. Look, Daniel said gently, I know you've been through a lot. I know you've learned to be afraid of adults. But I need you to understand something. I'm not your foster parent. I'm not someone doing this for money or because I have to. I'm your uncle. Your family. And families mess up sometimes, but we work through it together. Okay. Okay, Sophie said quietly. The others nodded. They watched a movie that night, all five of them squeezed onto the couch. Ethan fell asleep halfway through. Grace dozed off near the end. Tommy tried to stay awake, but eventually his eyes closed. Only Sophie made it to the credits. Uncle Daniel, she asked as he carried Ethan upstairs. Yeah. Are you scared? He paused. Of what? Of us. Of taking care of us. Of everything changing. Daniel set Ethan gently in his bed, then sat on Sophie's floor. Terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never been a parent before. I don't know how to help with homework or make school lunches or deal with nightmares. I'm probably going to mess up a lot. Sophie seemed to relax at his honesty. Mama used to say that people who admit they are scared are braver than people who pretend they are not. Your mama was right about a lot of things. Do you miss her? Even though you didn't see her for so long. Every day. I missed her every single day she was gone. And now I miss her even more because I can see her in you guys. The way Tommy does math in his head like she used to. The way Grace hums when she draws. The way Ethan trusts people even though he shouldn't. You all have pieces of her. She talked about you sometimes, Sophie said. She said you were the only person in her family who was ever kind to her. She said she left because she didn't want to disappoint you. Daniel's eyes burned. She could never have disappointed me. That's what I told her. In the hospital, before she died. I told her that her big brother probably still loved her. She smiled and said maybe. Then she gave me this necklace and told me to keep it safe. She said it was from the person who loved her most, and someday I'd understand. And do you understand now? Sophie nodded. You're the person who loved her most. And now you love us. I do love you. All of you. And I'm going to do my best to show you what that means every single day. Sophie got into her new bed. Uncle Daniel, can you stay until I fall asleep? I don't like the dark. I'll stay as long as you need. He sat on the floor next to her bed, holding her hand through the rail. It took a long time for her breathing to even out, for her grip to loosen. When she was finally asleep, Daniel stood to leave, but her hand tightened again. Don't go, she mumbled, half asleep. I'm just going to my room, he whispered. I'm not leaving. I'll be right down the hall. Promise. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. She let go then, truly asleep. Daniel checked on the other children, all tucked into their new beds in their new rooms in their new home. Then he went to his own room and called his assistant in Seattle. Start the process of relocating the company headquarters, he said. I want a satellite office in Minneapolis, with option to make it the main hub within a year. And I want to hire locally. This community gave everything to help my family. It's time I gave back. After he hung up, Daniel stood at his window looking out at the quiet street of Pine Ridge. Streetlights reflected off the snow. Somewhere a dog barked. Normal suburban sounds. A normal life. He'd spent 15 years building an empire. Now he was building something much harder and far more important. A family. 3 weeks passed. The children started school, and Rachel reported they were adjusting well. Tommy was already being considered for advanced placement. Sophie had joined the school's reading club. Grace was taking art classes after school. Even Ethan was thriving in kindergarten, making friends and bringing home crayon masterpieces every day. Daniel settled into a routine. Breakfast together. Walk the kids to school. Work from home. Pick them up. Help with homework. Dinner. Family time. Bedtime. It was exhausting and overwhelming and nothing like his old life of board meetings and business deals. It was also the most fulfilling thing he'd ever done. But not everything was perfect. Tommy had nightmares twice a week, waking up screaming about being taken away. Grace still barely spoke to anyone except family. Ethan had attachment issues, panicking whenever Daniel left the house. And Sophie carried the weight of 4 years of being the parent when she should have been the child. The therapy appointments helped, but healing took time. One afternoon, Rachel stopped by after school. The children were at the community center for a program, giving Daniel a rare hour alone. How are you holding up? She asked, accepting the coffee he offered. Honestly, some days I feel like I'm drowning. Last night, Tommy had a nightmare and Grace threw up from anxiety, and Sophie told me she was worried I'd get tired of them and send them back. All at the same time. What did you do? Held Tommy until he calmed down. Cleaned up Grace. Promised Sophie for the 100th time that I'm not going anywhere. Then I sat in the bathroom at 2 in the morning and cried. Rachel touched his arm. That's not drowning. That's parenting. You showed up. You did the hard thing. You didn't run. I wanted to. But you didn't. That's what matters. Daniel sank onto the couch. My board is pushing back on the company relocation. They think I'm making an emotional decision that'll hurt profits. Maybe they're right. Are profits more important than those 4 children? No. But what if I'm making the wrong choice? What if moving the company here fails? What if I can't give the kids everything they need because I'm stretched too thin? Rachel sat next to him. Daniel, look at me. Those children went from being lost in a blizzard to having their own rooms, their own family, a community that loves them, and an uncle who shows up every single day. You think they care about whether your company headquarters is in Seattle or Minneapolis? I just want to do right by them. You are. But you're also human. You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to have doubts. That doesn't mean you're failing. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Rachel spoke again, her voice softer. Can I tell you something? When I met Sophie and Tommy last year, they were so shut down. Sophie wouldn't make eye contact. Tommy wouldn't speak in class. They'd learned that being invisible was safer than being noticed. Now Sophie volunteers to read aloud. Tommy helps other kids with math. They are coming alive. That's because of you. That's because of this whole town. Yes. And you're the one who chose to stay. You're the one who could have hired nannies and gone back to Seattle and visited on weekends. But you didn't. You're here, every day, doing the hard work. Don't underestimate what that means. Daniel met her eyes. Over the past few weeks, Rachel had become more than just a children's teacher. She'd become a friend, a support system, someone he could be honest with. Thank you, he said, for everything, for believing in them, for helping me figure this out. I'm not doing it because I'm being nice, Rachel said. I'm doing it because I care. About them. And, if I'm being honest, about you. The air shifted. Daniel suddenly became very aware of how close they were sitting. Rachel. You don't have to say anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know. You're not alone in this. Before Daniel could respond, the front door burst open. The children tumbled in, laughing and covered in snow. The moment broke, but something had changed. That evening, Sophie found Daniel sitting on the back porch, looking at the stars. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. She sat next to him. Are you going to leave? What? No. Why would you think that? I heard you talking to Miss Moore about your company. About Seattle. I heard you say you wanted to run. Daniel pulled her close. Sophie, listen to me. When I said I wanted to run, I meant I felt overwhelmed. Scared. But feeling scared and actually leaving are 2 different things. I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. Promise. I promise. And you know what? I'm glad I'm here. This is where I'm supposed to be. With you guys. In this town. Building this life. It's hard, but it's good. Do you understand? Sophie nodded against his shoulder. Miss Moore likes you. Daniel laughed, surprised. What makes you say that? The way she looks at you. Like you're important. Like she sees you. She's a good person. She'd be a good mom too. If you wanted. I mean, if she wanted. We're okay if you're not alone. You should be happy too. Daniel's throat tightened. This 12-year-old girl, who'd been forced to grow up too fast, was giving him permission to find happiness. Thank you, he whispered. But right now, I'm focused on you 4. Everything else can wait. Okay. But Uncle Daniel? You deserve good things too. Mama would want you to be happy. They sat together under the stars, this growing family learning how to love each other one day at a time. Inside, Tommy was helping Grace with her homework. Ethan was building a tower with blocks. Normal, everyday moments. The kind Daniel had never thought he'd have. The kind that made everything worth it. The custody hearing was scheduled for the first week of March. Daniel hired the best family lawyer in Minneapolis, a woman named Jennifer Harrison, who'd never lost a custody case. But even she was nervous. The judge will want to hear from the children, Jennifer explained. They'll ask Sophie what she wants. They'll evaluate whether you can truly provide a stable home. Be prepared for difficult questions. The night before the hearing, Daniel couldn't sleep. He found Sophie in the kitchen at 2 in the morning, also unable to rest. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. She shook her head. What if the judge says no? What if they make us go back? They won't. But what if they do? Daniel sat across from her. Then I'll appeal. And I'll keep appealing until we win. Sophie, I meant what I said. You're my family. I'm not giving up. Ever. Mrs. Winters said the judge might think you're too busy for us. That you can't give us what we need because of your job. Then I'll show them I can. I've already started relocating the company. I've hired local staff. I work from home most days. The judge will see that I'm committed. What if it's not enough? It will be. It has to be. The courthouse in Minneapolis was intimidating, all marble and echoes. The children wore their best clothes, donations from the Pine Ridge Church. Daniel wore a suit but felt more nervous than he'd ever felt before any business presentation. Beth and Rachel came as character witnesses. Half of Pine Ridge seemed to be in the courtroom, showing support. Even Mayor Sullivan was there. Judge Sandra Martinez was in her 50s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. She read through the case files, asked Mrs. Winters questions, and reviewed the reports from the children's therapists. Then she looked at Daniel. Mr. Cooper, you've only known these children for 6 weeks. You've never been a parent before. Your company requires extensive travel and long hours. Why should I believe you can provide a stable home? Daniel stood. Your Honor, everything you said is true. I didn't know these children existed until 6 weeks ago. I've never been a parent. My old life required travel and long hours. But that's my old life. I'm building a new one. I've relocated my company to Minneapolis. I've bought a home in Pine Ridge. I work from home 4 days a week. I'm at every school event, every doctor's appointment, every therapy session. I show up. Every single day, I show up. Many people show up at first. The question is whether you'll still be showing up in a year, 5 years, when they are teenagers and difficult. I will. Because they are not just some children I'm trying to help. They are my sister's children, my blood, my family, and I failed my sister. I didn't find her in time to save her, but I can save her children. I can give them the life she wanted for them. I owe her that. Judge Martinez made notes. Mrs. Henderson, you've been housing these children during the transition. What's your assessment? Beth stood. Your Honor, I've been a foster parent for 20 years. I've seen hundreds of children and dozens of potential parents. Daniel Cooper is the real deal. He's scared. He makes mistakes. But he loves those kids. And more importantly, they love him. They feel safe with him. That's what matters. Miss Moore. Rachel stood. I've taught Sophie and Tommy. I've watched all 4 children transform from shutdown, scared kids into thriving, happy children. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because Daniel Cooper shows up. Because he cares. Because he's building a life that puts them first. The judge turned to the children. Sophie, would you approach the bench? Sophie walked forward, her hand shaking. Daniel wanted to go with her, but Jennifer held him back. Sophie, do you want to live with your uncle? Judge Martinez asked gently. Yes. Why? Sophie took a breath. Because he's the first person who ever chose us. Not because he had to. Not because he was getting paid. But because we're his family. He moved his whole life for us. He's learning how to make pancakes even though he's terrible at it. He reads to Ethan every night even though he has work to do. He helps Tommy with math even though Tommy's better at it than he is. He listens when Grace doesn't want to talk. He's trying so hard, even when it's hard. What if he changes his mind? He won't. I thought he might at first. I kept waiting for him to get tired of us. But he doesn't. Even when we have bad days. Even when we mess up. He says families stick together. And I finally believe him. What about your siblings? Do they want this too? Yes. Tommy says Uncle Daniel is teaching him that being smart is good, not something to hide. Grace says he makes her feel safe. Ethan calls him Dad sometimes by accident, and Uncle Daniel doesn't correct him. We all want to stay together. We all want to stay with him. Judge Martinez nodded. You can sit down, Sophie. Thank you for your honesty. The judge reviewed her notes for what felt like hours. The courtroom was silent. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Finally, Judge Martinez looked up. I've reviewed the case files. I've heard the testimonies. I've seen the reports from therapists, teachers, and social workers. I've watched Mr. Cooper's face while his niece spoke about him. And I've made a decision. Daniel held his breath. Mr. Cooper, these children have been through significant trauma. They need stability, love, and someone who will put them first. Based on everything I've seen, I believe you can provide that. I'm granting you full legal custody of Sophie, Thomas, Grace, and Ethan Cooper, effective immediately. The courtroom erupted. Beth was crying. Rachel was hugging Sophie. Tommy and Grace were jumping up and down. Ethan was asking what happened. Daniel couldn't move. He just stood there, tears streaming down his face. Jennifer grabbed his arm. Congratulations. They're yours. They're mine, Daniel repeated, the words finally sinking in. They're really mine. Sophie ran to him and threw her arms around him. The other children followed. They stood in the courthouse, this newly official family, holding each other while the people of Pine Ridge cheered. Judge Martinez banged a gavel. Congratulations, Mr. Cooper. Make sure you do right by these children. I will, Daniel promised. I swear I will. They left the courthouse as a family. Legal, official, permanent. On the steps, the spring sun was shining. The snow had melted, revealing green grass underneath. Winter was over. Spring was beginning. And four lost children finally had a home. 6 months later, Pine Ridge was in full summer bloom. The Hendricks house, now officially the Cooper house, had a garden in the backyard where Grace grew tomatoes and Sophie tended sunflowers. Tommy had built a telescope platform where he studied the stars. Ethan had a swing set and a sandbox and more friends than he could count. Daniel stood at the grill, attempting to cook burgers for the neighborhood barbecue they were hosting. He was better at cooking now, though still not great. Rachel stood next to him, offering gentle corrections. You're burning them again, she said with a smile. I'm giving them character. That's one way to put it. They'd been dating for 3 months now, taking things slow for the children's sake. But it was clear to everyone, especially the kids, that this was something special. The backyard was full of people. Beth and Doc Patterson sat at the picnic table, arguing good-naturedly about baseball. Mayor Sullivan was playing catch with Tommy and some other kids. The Johnsons were teaching Sophie a new piano piece on the keyboard they'd brought. Grace was showing her art to anyone who would look. Ethan was conducting an imaginary orchestra from the swing set. Jennifer Harrison, the lawyer who'd won their case, had become a friend. She sat with Mrs. Winters, who transformed from bureaucrat to family friend once the stress of the case was over. This is quite a turnout, Jennifer said. Daniel's becoming a real part of the community, Mrs. Winters replied. And those children are thriving. Best outcome I've seen in years. Principal Chen approached Daniel with news. The school board approved your donation. We're building a new library and computer lab. The kids are going to have access to resources that'll change their lives. It's the least I could do, Daniel said. This town gave me everything. It's time I gave back. He'd made good on his promise. His company's Minneapolis office was now the headquarters, employing 50 local people. He'd donated to the school, the community center, and the church. But more importantly, he'd become part of the fabric of Pine Ridge, showing up at town meetings, coaching youth baseball, and simply being present. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Daniel called everyone together. I want to thank you all for coming, he said. 6 months ago, I didn't know this town existed. I didn't know my sister had children. I was living a completely different life. But then a snowstorm brought me here, and everything changed. He looked at the 4 children, his children, standing together. Sophie, Tommy, Grace, and Ethan, you changed my life. You showed me what really matters. Not money or success or business deals, but family, love, being there for each other. Sophie smiled, no longer the scared girl from the highway, but a confident young woman growing into herself. Daniel continued, but I also want to thank this town. You welcomed 4 scared children and a stranger without hesitation. You showed us what community means. You taught us that kindness isn't something you earn. It's something you give freely. You saved our lives in more ways than one. Beth raised her glass. To the Cooper family. To the Cooper family, everyone echoed. Later, as people started to leave, Rachel helped Daniel clean up. The children were exhausted, grass-stained, and completely happy. This was a good day, Rachel said. Every day is good now, Daniel replied. Even the hard ones. Even when Tommy has nightmares or Grace shuts down or Sophie worries. Because we're together. We're family. Speaking of family, Rachel said carefully, the kids asked me something yesterday. What's that? They asked if I was going to be their mom someday. Daniel froze. What did you tell them? I said that was a question for the future. But that I love them very much. And I love their uncle very much too. Daniel set down the dish he was holding and turned to face her. Rachel Moore, I've known you for 6 months. But I feel like I've known you forever. You've been there for every moment, good and bad. You've loved these kids when they needed love most. And you've loved me when I barely knew how to love myself. He got down on one knee. Rachel's hands flew to her mouth. I didn't plan this. I don't have a ring. But I can't wait another day. Rachel, will you marry me? Will you help me raise these 4 amazing kids? Will you build this life with me? Yes, Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. Yes, yes, yes. They kissed while the sunset painted everything gold. From the house, they heard cheering. The children had been watching from the window, and now they came running out. I told you she'd say yes, Sophie said smugly. Did you all know about this? Daniel asked. Tommy did the math on when Uncle Daniel would propose, Grace said. He was only off by 3 days. Statistical probability, Tommy explained. It was obvious. Ethan just hugged Rachel's legs. Does this mean you're staying forever? Forever, Rachel promised. As the stars came out and fireflies lit up the yard, the Cooper family sat together on the porch. Daniel held Rachel's hand. Sophie leaned against his shoulder. Tommy and Grace argued about something. Ethan was already half asleep. This was what Amy had wanted, Daniel realized. Not perfection. Not wealth. Not even safety, necessarily. Just love. Just family. Just the knowledge that her children would be okay. I kept my promise, Amy, he whispered to the night sky. They are safe. They are loved. They are home. The wind picked up, gentle and warm, carrying with it the scent of sunflowers and possibility. And somewhere, somehow, Daniel knew his sister was smiling. A year later, the Cooper family had grown even more. Rachel and Daniel had married in a simple ceremony in the Pine Ridge Church, with all 4 children as the wedding party. Sophie had given Rachel away. Tommy had been the ring bearer. Grace had sung. Ethan had carried a sign that said Uncle Daniel and Miss Moore forever. The adoption papers had been finalized. Rachel was now legally Sophie, Tommy, Grace, and Ethan's mother. They'd all chosen to keep their last name as Cooper, but they'd added Rachel's name to their birth certificates. They were a family in every way that mattered. Daniel's company had expanded the Minneapolis office into a major hub, creating hundreds of jobs in the region. The Pine Ridge satellite office employed 20 people from town. The